guys, welcome back to Starry Waves, and we are finally here. We are almost done with Shyhobbist. After Asteroida, we have Planetina and Aura, and then only two more queens after that, so perfect. But this is a pretty good ride that we're on, and I'm so grateful that Shyhobbist was able to make these. Thanks, and let's get into it. Asteroida Butterfly, half demon, half butterfly, living for danger and thrill, giving every challenge a try. Butterfly, the Daredevil. Born 10:66 a.m., died 11:14 a.m. Was queen 10:85 a.m. to 11:14 a.m. Married to Baron Waterson. Children, Planetia Butterfly. On the night of Unicorn 17, 1066, the first daughter of Queen Sonia Butterfly and King Valentine Lucitor was born, a hybrid of the human and demon species. The princess had features from both: magenta hair, peach skin, 3 periwinkle eyes, sharp teeth, pointy ears, horns, and a red pointed tail. She wore comets on her cheeks and was named Asteroida, after Sonia saw a meteor shower through the window. The first butterfly princess with demon blood, Asteroida's infancy was spent between Butterfly and Lucitor courts. That being said, Asteroida's behavior during her early childhood was akin to that of a wild animal. She was completely quadrupedal and communicated only in growls and feral sounds, easily frightened and sensitive to loud noises. Additionally, she displayed other, more demon-like quirks, such as crawling up walls and ceilings, sleep, floating, and reportedly having a demonic screech that could crack walls. Asteroida seemed to grow out of this phase around the age of 2, when the first reports of the princess's actual personality began to emerge. A mischievous and chaotic little girl. She was a wild card who loved causing trouble and pulling pranks, being called Little Imp by servants due to her constant cackling. It seemed that Asteroida loved facing danger or finding the least safe things to do. Addicted to the unique feeling of adrenaline that came with it, and being a big bad demon, as she put it, like her father. I suspect she just wants to watch the world burn, a maid once commented. Moreover, for everyone outside her family, she played a tough and fearless figure, driving away other children of her age or dreading her intense and sometimes outright dangerous games. Her closest companion was her younger brother Meteorite, often referred to as her partner in crime, and who always accompanied the princess looking for imaginary adventures, or sometimes to break their favorite game being to pretend the floor was lava. Asteroida's reckless conduct and influence on her brother often led to some disagreements with her parents, though nothing substantial that would permanently stain what otherwise was a loving and supportive relationship. Indeed brave, 1069, when Asteroida developed pyrokinesis abilities inherited from her father. The most faithful testimony about the event comes from Queen Sonia's own personal records. I was in the midst of scolding my little demon over her latest antic when Asteroida began getting quite crabby, as was usual. However, the unusual came when she threw a tantrum and emitted pink flames from her hands and feet, however, hovering for a bit and losing control after getting frightened in the process. Thanks to Celestia, I was able to call Valentine and extinguish the flames before it escalated out of hand. It took several months of training with King Valentine for Asteroida to master her abilities. In the meantime, castle staff was reportedly forced to carry blankets and water buckets to put out any spontaneous combustion, common whenever the princess was overstimulated, like during her plays. By the end of 1070, Asteroida was already in control of her fire powers, being capable of generating flames, opening portals to the underworld, flying, and becoming intangible to extreme heat sources. What she liked the most was swimming in Lava Lake Beach with her father, him being responsible for teaching her how to swim. However, it appeared her new fiery powers also brought out the infamous Lucifer temper in her, with Asteroida being more prone to easily lose her already slim patience and act in fits of rage more so than before, giving rise to what is popularly known today as her demon face, figuring perhaps her daughter was just lacking some healthy relationships with people her age. Queen Sonia encouraged Asteroida to try and interact with her peers more, especially since Meteorite had meanwhile found his own passions. Yet both Lucifer and Butterfly's noble youth kept rejecting Asteroida's company, claiming she wasn't truly one of them. The butterfly children were especially hostile, calling her names like amalgam and monster, and even saying it was a mistake for an oddball like her to be the heir. Luckily for the fire brigade, Asteroida didn't seem to be deeply affected by the naysayers. She disregarded their mocking and sometimes even clapped back, in addition to intentionally pranking and scaring her tormentors. I couldn't care less about their opinions on me. I don't need to be one of them. I just need to be myself, she wrote in one of the few entries in her journal. Many historians theorize it was this wedge between Asteroida and her human peers that drove the princess to lean more into her demon side, piercing her ears, liking spikes, ripping her clothes, and beginning to wear mascara. Yet Asteroida's reputation proved to be her downfall. In 1072, when Persian thieves in Emu Redbird decided to teach her a lesson, when she wouldn't forget. They caught her by surprise near one of the castle pools and threw her in, laughing alongside the others as Asteroida struggled to stay afloat, and displayed genuine terror for not knowing how to swim in water. The princess had lost consciousness by the time she was saved by Bering Waterson, who jumped into the pool and dragged Asteroida back to the surface. As soon as she regained her senses, Asteroida went up to Emu and Persian, smacking them on the back of their heads and leaving small burns. "I won't tell if you won't," she said as she winked, snickering as the other children ran away in fear. All but Bering Waterson, who had stayed behind observing the scene with a certain awe. When Asteroida turned to him, she first thanked him for saving her, before suspecting his motives and asking what was he getting at. As she ignited her fists, the young Waterson immediately replied he just wanted to start over, claiming he never called her any names and only accompanied the group because it was his wish. Asteroida in return questioned if he wasn't afraid of her like the others, to which the boy laughed and replied he thought it was really cool that she was a demon, and that her being so dangerous was exactly why he wanted to be her friend. Captivated by the thought of finally having a friend outside her family, Asteroida accepted the truth, shaking hands with who went on to be her best companion. Asteroida and Bering were a chaotic inseparable duo from then on. Lord Beaufort's nephew revealed himself to be an equally avid adept of danger and thrills. The majority of scholars agreeing this was precisely what made them develop such a strong camaraderie and banter. His laid-back, chill personality nicely countered the princess's explosiveness, with her number of anger outbursts reportedly decreasing in his company. They often went on adventures together, taking their plays into reality and secretly evading the castle walls against their parents' wishes. Exploring forbidden areas like the forest of certain depth or the underworld tunnels. Beren was also the one who helped Asteroida gradually overcome her aquaphobia, making her realize swimming in water was nothing more than swimming in lava. In time, the princess came to prefer the aquatic mean, developing a passion for surfing and sailing thanks to her best friend. In the tournament of 1074, it reached her ears that the noble youth was spreading rumors to the other heirs that the fearless Asteroida was afraid of water. Intent of proving that she truly dreaded nothing, the princess enrolled in this Kraken swimming competition against her mother's advice, spending the following weeks intensively training and preparing herself for the challenge. However, the outcome wasn't what she had hoped for. According to witnesses, as Asteroida competed, the Kraken broke free from restraint and paralyzed the princess with fear. She was saved by Queen Sunya, who froze the beast and sent it into the crystal dimension. Humiliated, Asteroida left the arena in the midst of the commotion and ran to her room, sealing herself in and refusing to speak to anyone for the rest of the day. To make matters worse, her grandfather Huxley passed away the following day, only extending the princess's lockdown in her quarters. It took a night knocking on Asteroida's door and informing her that Bering Waterson wished to see her for the princess to finally open her door. One of the rare instances when she lowered her guard, Asteroida broke down and told the boy she was full of lies, having even told herself that she wasn't a wimp. After wiping her tears, which burned in his sleeve, and embracing her, Bering told Asteroida her value didn't come from her fearlessness, before revealing the story of his cousin, who lacked courage in his youth and was therefore sent to naval school by his parents. He returned a hard and stern man who learned to embrace his fear and use it to his benefit. Such tale planted in Asteroida the seed that she needed to go to the Royal Navy to toughen up, eventually convincing her parents to enroll her and departing to high seas still in 1074, joined by Bering. Asteroida's instruction was put in charge of Admiral Bohol Waterson. She learned martial arts and became an expert sailor, in addition to having lessons on strategy, discipline, risk, and reward under a tight schedule and strict rules. Apart from that, not much else is known from the princess's tutoring under the veteran sailor, mostly due to her lack of interest in keeping a journal of sparse correspondence to the continent. What is known is that when she briefly set foot on land in 1080 to receive the wand after turning 14, Asteroida already differed drastically from the girl who had departed. In addition to being taller, more athletic, and sporting a new pink hair streak in her bangs, Asteroida appeared more mature alongside altogether. Notable when she cordially greeted her former rivals, as opposed to setting them on fire as the old her would have done. However, Asteroida's growth wasn't enough to prove her worth in the eyes of her mother's ministers, who questioned the queen's decision to give her the wand. The majority of the council doubted the wand would be in the safest hands due to the princess's volatile temper, arguing she didn't even need it due to her fire powers. While still attempting to convince Queen Sunya to replace Asteroida with her sister Serenity as heiress. Evidently, their claims went unheard, with Sonia following the tradition and presenting Astra the relic anyways. Asteroida departed again a week following the ceremony, taking her new wand with her and practicing magic whenever she had a break in her schedule. The daughter of Sonia the sorceress, she too was an exceptional student, her spellcasting being distinctive for combining her demon and butterfly magic. To this day, only she has been able to perform signature spells such as Blazing Bat Whirlpool and Melting Magma Melee. She had the habit of transforming the relic into harpoons or pitchforks to aid in her duties, even discovering her own ability to reattach several limbs following an accident the first time she maneuvered the harpoon. The last piece of information reaches us due to the fact that Bohol instructed Asteroida to get the ship's log, where she would write each day's events, which explains the disparity in quantity of information regarding the first and back halves of her training, in addition to revealing some hitherto unknown details regarding the beginning of her journey. In it, the princess also notes down every new development, treating it more as a diary, allowing us to get a better picture of the challenges she faced. That being said, Asteroida's struggle with the authority of her superiors is deeply implied throughout the multiple entries in her log, detailing her punishments for her complete disregard and breaking of the rules over the years. These included scrubbing the deck over her refusal to wear a uniform or ripping off its sleeves to her liking, the barnacles she had to scrape for taking lifeboats for joyrides with Bering, or all the corn she had to peel for disobeying direct orders and opting for a riskier approach on her mission, which somehow always paid off. Asteroida's brilliance in strategy and leadership was revealed through the success of her tactics, even if bold and rebellious, which historians attribute to years of adventure planning in her youth. If that last wasn't so damn efficient, I would have discharged her a long time ago, Bohol would tell his fellow officers. Speaking of the young Watterson, Asteroida and Bering evolved their friendship into a romance sometime in 1081, which the princess details in a then deleted passage of her log. Ever since my return, I found out Bering had been transferred to my crew. It was the coolest thing. We shared a bunk bed, meals were paired up for exercise, and spent virtually every second of the day together. Then on our first night on lookout duty together, we felt some romantic tension building, and he kissed me under the starry sky. It was cold in the frosty, and we were alone, so we snuggled for heat, rocked by the gentle waves, and well, we broke Rule 6. For the first time, I truly didn't fear anything. It was just me, Bering, and the ocean. It speculated the pair's relationship being frowned upon among older officers who intended to separate them, was behind Bering's reassignment to a different group later that year. However, the veracity of these rumors is unknown. There are even those who believe Asteroida and Bering would have kept in contact through love letters and razor claims, but no such documents have been found to support these claims, in addition to Asteroida's known aversion to sentimentality. As the years progressed, so did Asteroida's naval corsair. She was promoted to captain in 1083, being trusted her own crew and ship, and instructed to scour the waterfolk sea for pirates and mercenaries, or help merchants in need. Now a true captain, Asteroida found herself frequently visiting taverns and pubs with her crew, fully embracing the sailor lifestyle. Most historians are fast to criticize the princess's apparent lack of responsibility due to the amount of intoxicated fistfights her sailor party mouth won her, failing to realize Asteroida's true motives to frequent such establishments. These filthy bars filled with seasoned seamen and experienced merchants are excellent sources of valuable information and tips on the whereabouts of criminals. She justifies in her journal. She was also given some common sea knowledge, being warned to steer away from Rabbit Island and the Bermuda Quadrangle. Bermuda Triangle, I get it. This latter being responsible for the disappearance of every ship and crew that they ventured. In the cut of the years 1083 and 1084, Asteroida apprehended more than 450 criminals across the seas of Mewni. One of these arrests, the capture of Red Rackham, is worth noting. The most vicious pirate of the time, Rackham was known for always getting away with his loot. He was close to escaping Asteroida's range until the stress of the oncoming failure led the princess to awaken her new belief, which is often said to have been delayed due to her hybrid nature, anything doubting she would even go through it at all. The result was a furious demon butterfly enveloping the enemy ship in her fiery webs, before flying off across half ocean to meet Bering and collapsing from exhaustion just as she reached the ship, ending the transformation. It was a fun day. In any case, the rumors of an angry pink devil warding off scum in the seas appeared to discourage most felons and bring maritime crimes to an all-time low. With Bohol informing Asteroida she would be made an admiral in 1085 as a reward for her services and achievements. Asteroida's last assignment consisted of subduing a rampaging kraken terrorizing merchants by the coast of the Kraken Kingdom, with the princess later celebrating her victory alongside her crew on Krakenstone Lab Tavern. It was while drinking her last beer that Asteroida noticed a group of men listening to an old sailor recounting the time he supposedly visited the Phantom Isles of the ancient Union Empire. Intrigued, Asteroida stated they were but myths, to which the old man replied, "So are krakens, and yet you are here. And yet here we are." The princess finished her drink pensive and left. As she returned to the Butterfly Kingdom, Asteroida purposely drifted her ship slightly west to settle her doubts, being awestruck upon making out what seemed to be a large ruins peeking through the dense mist. The thrill of a lifetime, she thought, foreshadowing that what would be her obsession in the future. As Bohol had previously announced, Asteroida was promoted to Admiral Asteroida Butterfly on the last week of the summer of 1085. While her reunion with her family had been brief, it was enough for Asteroida to take notice of her mother's worsening health. During the ceremony, she informed Queen Xenia of her intention to assume the crown and elevate her from duty as soon as possible, which the queen approved. Nevertheless, Asteroida would still win another title later that night, that of fiancé, after Bering's surprise proposal. "I will always be your first mate," he told Asteroida as he kissed her hand, revealing he had been promoted to captain, in fact having taken her place, and was therefore allowed to closer to her. Preparing for both the coronation and wedding began immediately, with both ceremonies taking place later that year. Asteroida's wedding was held on the high seas, being a blend of butterfly and Lucifer customs. Contrary to most academics' beliefs, Asteroida's new duties as Queen Butterfly didn't prevent her from patrolling the seas and make sure it was safe. It was a safe place for all travelers. Whereas some say this was to get away from her ministers, it's more often reported as an excuse to be with her husband, who at the time was off serving in the Royal Navy. Something which did end up happening as their ships crossed more than once. Whatever the case, there's a common misconception Asteroida was explosive, temperamental queen, subject to her own tantrums and mood swings. When talking about Asteroida Butterfly, her raging image immediately comes to mind. While it is true that the new queen resorted to her demon phase more often than she wished, this was merely due to her own counsel's reluctance to support any decision she made, sabotaging and going against her measures in an effort to discourage her from reigning and abdicate, thus forcing Asteroida to use drastic measures to make herself heard. Many, especially Bering, wondered why she never replaced them, to which Asteroida always replied there was no way she'd back away from a good fight, even if a long one. Asteroida's crown was part 1 of Asteroida Butterfly. I really love how Shy is able to mix Daredevil and Sea Captain. Oh my god, Shy is just the best. Shy Hobbyist, you the best. Thank you a lot, and bye-bye.